Perfect. So I wrote my story down so I don't forget it. So my abridged 5-minute story starts in an undergraduate classroom in the University of Calgary. So geologists have to take observations at the surface and maybe some drill holes and invent a picture of the subsurface. And that picture, as well as the process of creating it, is nuanced and it's intricate. And the professors whom I was learning from had it locked away in their heads. They taught us by scrawling equations on the blackboards and photocopying black and white diagrams, trying to compress their rich understanding through these tools to get it into our heads. And it was rather frustrating. So many of the students had trouble, and especially when three-dimensional visualization was involved. But the tools that were required to do that were not provided. So I had just learned to program, and I was channeling my frustrations into visual modeling applications that taught and showed my peers these processes. So I approached the geoscience department and got funding to deploy these prototypes into the geology courses. It was, perhaps not too surprisingly, successful. So when you get students to use their eyes rather than sort of blindly manipulating algebraic symbols, things go better. So this seemed important, and I was helping people see geology. So when I graduated, I didn't want to let things die. So I moved the programs out of MATLAB, which is a desktop environment, to the web, and I called it Visible Geology. And I posted that link on a single blog with 50 followers saying, I think this will help. And then I started grad school at UBC in computational geophysics. And during my first few courses, I watched this site sort of propagate around the United States and hop over to Europe and then through South America and stuff like that. And so a few months later, I got emails from textbook companies and the occasional oil and gas consultant wanting to start conversations about licensing this visualization and modeling software. And so it was that sort of impetus that I started a company called 3point Science with Adam Pavlicki, who's actually a professor at U of C and a UBC grad. And that was to bring these ideas to the next level. So we had an educational application, some momentum, a few bytes that needed to reel in the oil and gas industry. We learned that the first year of new recruits spent at oil companies spend their entire first year relearning all of the undergraduate geology, but this time correctly from the oil and gas company point of view. So except this time they didn't call it education, it was called training. And so we sort of snuck in the door at a super major oil and gas company and showed our toys and to some of the higher ups. And they asked us if we could use those toys for real things like their data and their presentations, their reports, and the boardroom conversations. So they didn't want training tools, they wanted communication tools. And so this is when I discovered EAUBC, and I started the Lean Launchpad program. So we were starting to be pulled into these companies, but we were really sort of at risk of being pulled apart. We were walking this sort of fine line between being a consulting company and trying to get the funding that we needed from these consulting projects to be the product company that we wanted to become. So we were asked by many customers to sort of take on these large software projects to help them solve their problems. And it took a lot of energy and guidance to say no to some of these contracts and please hold to many others so that we could focus on our own vision. So the LLP is a 5-week sprint that forced me to do two things. First, paint a picture with words and props rather than painting it with code. So my first demo that actually worked and had a customer saying, yeah, that's what I want that, was an interactive story on the New York Times website that had nothing to do with me nor anything to do with geology. And then second, I think our mentors really pushed hard, so they have this competition of interviews that you have to collect. So I pushed my network way harder than I thought it was, and to be way bigger. And so by the end of the LLP, we were asked to support a workshop for diamond exploration at a group at UBC. And so that brought together a lot of people from industry, from government, from academia. And this event sort of combined this cutting-edge geophysical research into integrating geophysics with geology, with our very bleeding-edge communication tools that shouldn't have worked, but they did. And so we had all sorts of technical people interacting, sketching, commenting in our 3D platform, linking iPads, iPhones, laptops, and all of the computers in real time all at once. So it was quite an experience. And people were pretty impressed, and they wanted tighter integration with their geologic modeling platform, which was called Leapfrog. And this company turned out to be the channel that we really needed to get to market. So what followed was a whole bunch of joint venture talks and scoping and business strategy and a flight to New Zealand, which was fun. And it sort of ended in a decision that it was better for everyone to work together. And so we got bought by them. And so what they're viewing us as is a funded startup now. And so they gave us a generous budget and a global sales team. Which is good because I don't do sales. So we are really at the start of our next journey, and at the end of a rather circuitous one that spanned university courses, textbook publishing, oil and gas training, collaborative mining software. And so 3point Science is in the business of getting technical 3D ideas out of one person's head and into somebody else's, supporting technical communication. So I see education, training, and collaboration as instances of this communication. What is very different, however, is the business model. And that was focused and crafted here on those whiteboards with the help of many mentors and the guidance of the EAUBC team. So thank you.